Alrighty. Well, hello today, Rob. Thank you for taking the time to answer a few questions. Today's topic is rhinestone business. Permaboss has been in the rhinestone business since early 2001 in USA. However, your partner has been building machines since 1984, and you guys have machines running 24/7 in the USA since the early 90s. I guess it makes you the authority on the subject. So can you tell us where the top 5 mistakes people make when starting a rhinestone-related business?
Well, thanks for the intro. It's true, we've been doing it for a long time. We do have machines that are running 24/7 in the fashion industry, still made here. That customer, by the way, has 7 machines from us, so it's a pretty hefty investment. And there's a lot of cheaper stuff available in the market, but they still choose us because we've never really ever had a service call there. They know how to take care of the machines, they know how to maintain them, and that's the difference, right? When you buy something cheaper. But there's a couple key things. Number one is software, right? A lot of people will be chintzy. They just won't spend money. They'll be greedy and they have a tight budget, but buying the wrong software is a big problem. So, Adobe and Corel are absolutely great programs, but they're meant for the professional. And when you look at an Adobe program, you have 1,000, 1,500 options, of which you use maybe 7 that don't exactly work for rhinestones, but they kind of get you to where you're going. And they are predominantly graphics programs. They're not programs to run a machine. And in anything you do with a rhinestone, at some point, somewhere, you're going to do it by a machine. So you want to be able to create the instructions in a certain way in the background so you could send that file to a machine. And that's the number one thing. So you can get a lot of software that's been around for 2, 3, 4, 5 years that are add-ons to something. But when a company is selling software and they don't actually make a machine and they don't have a history since 84, then the philosophy of how it works is completely different, and it's a lot more steps and a lot more cumbersome. I'll give you a quick example. Can you picture a yin-yang logo, that black and white logo? If you do that in Corel or Adobe, you make a circle and then somebody puts another circle on top. They put the one underneath white, the one on top black, and then they manipulate those vector lines. The vector lines are the lines that outline something. And then they end up with something that looks like yin-yang, but the problem is that to a machine, there's on the one side, there's 2 circles, there's 2 sets of vectors, and that causes complications. So you can't have that. And then nobody really has like the autofill feature. So if you're not going to do an autofill, you might as well just do it by hand like they do in Asia. Because if you're going to sit there with the mouse and click each stone in, it totally defeats the purpose. You need to have a tool that can fill multiple stones, multiple sizes, randomly, symmetrically. You can determine the spaces so that it looks good, etc. And what people forget with software is that there will never be a software that interprets the human eye, because what you think, what I think, and what the listener thinks is good looking is subjective. And the computer always does a mathematical algorithm, and that doesn't mean it's going to look good. So you need the ability to redraw, click redraw, respace something, and that's what the autofill features are for. So there isn't too much out there that does that. And I can say to date that of all the software, the Rhinestone works, we haven't lost a sale to the other people of all the other brands, but we have traded in every other brand. But I don't think you can find one person that's traded to a cheaper software out there from Rhinestone Works. Number 2 is equipment, and people don't understand this. When you do anything that involves the hand, it's going to be very difficult to make money unless you're doing it with the Asian wages or the Far East wages. Because anything that involves hand, and this is what the people don't do, they don't actually do a time study. So they say, I'm going to buy the cheaper software, but they spend 30 minutes, 40 minutes making something, and that should have been made in 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 minutes. That's number 1. Number 2 is they take it to a machine and then they have to cut a template. And if they're going to do multiple color, they have to cut multiple templates. Then they have to have a methodology with a chalk brush or a paint brush or something to get the stones in the template. Because the stones, even in our videos in the early days when we used to sell that equipment, we didn't show complex designs, we showed simple designs, and the stones just don't fall in perfectly. So now, who's calculating the time, how long it takes to spend? And if I'm going to do it, I'm going to charge what I get paid. I'm going to pay myself minimum wage because I'm not a minimum wage person, right? but I got to charge as the business owner doing it. So what is that worth? 25, 45 bucks an hour? People forget to do that. They think, okay, that's fine. Then they spend, till 3, 4 in the morning doing the thing, and then they're exhausted for their kids and their spouse and all that. So that's not a way to make money. And people forget that you got to add in the time from the conversation, the sales conversation, to the time you do the quote, the time you do the artwork, the time you do to prepare and cut with the engraving machine, the vinyl cutter, whatever, to getting the template ready, to testing the template, to making the designs, to doing quality control, to get it on the T-shirt, to get it packaged, and to take it to them. And people forget to charge that. They go, oh, I made, 80 bucks, 150 bucks today. I made $2,000. Well, if they made $2,000, they forgot to add in all the hours. And you've heard phone calls when we had some training going on where the mother, the father, and the sister-in-law are working in the company, not even on the payroll. So that's not realistic. That's not a business that's sellable. That's not a business that's going to survive, because that's not real. Well, down the road, no. You need to make money on everything that you do today when you're in a business like this. So not getting any form of automated equipment is a death bell in the United States of America. Now, there are thousands of people who have a system like that, but if you can find me one that's actually taken the time study and made more than minimum wage or less, then they're going to get a trophy from me or a big bottle of champagne or something, because they're going to be the first. Really, it's like that. Now, if there are people who in certain big cities who do it under the table. They don't pay the taxes, it's cash, whatever. So we're talking about legitimate business that's contributing, making money, paying taxes in America, whatever. Third thing is buying stones from a middleman. If you're not buying stones from the manufacturer overseas, you shouldn't be in the business. Because if you're buying the stones here, you're buying it from somebody who's bought it from overseas. And the problem is that a stone should cost you 0.0001 per stone on a non-Swarovski stone. Okay, so a design that's 300 or 400 crystals should cost you 25 or 35 cents maximum in crystals. And people are spending, let's say, $28 for a bag of crystals, and when you extrapolate that, when you buy a gross is 144, so usually a bag of stones comes in 1,000 gross or 144,000 stones. So when you buy them from the manufacturer, really good quality from the people that we refer you to, because we sell the machines and the software, we don't gouge you on the stones, then you should buy that bag for really good quality stones for 35 bucks, plus maybe $5 shipping from overseas to you. Now, you don't buy one bag at a time, right? But you buy, let's say, $400 or $500 at a time. But when you do that, versus spending $28, that person's buying the thing for 35 bucks, selling it for $28. So that $35 bag of stone is charging, if you add it up, when he's selling it, 800 bucks. That's better than a crack dealer. I'm not sure. I don't have any experience. But, it's like insane. And then you're expected to make money off of that when you're buying the thing at practically a retail price, because you don't save a little bit to go and buy, $1,500, $500 of stones direct from the supplier. So anybody who's our customer, we tell them not where to go, we tell them where to go get the stones, okay? That's important. You need to buy the stones. If you're a manufacturer in the United States, you need to buy the supplies not from a middleman, okay? McDonald's and any manufacturing buys it direct from the person. They don't go to somebody in between to get it at a higher price, because then your car would be 3 times more expensive. The fourth thing would be people don't know how to price properly, because if they would calculate what it costs to make and charge a certain amount, they would realize that you could get away and charge for a t-shirt and make it a certain price and have a certain profit, but they're all over the board and they're not being stern. They'll take any kind of order. And if you do a onesie, twosie order, you better be charging, 30, 40, 50 bucks or more. But people don't understand, this is a fundamental, that whether you do something for 5 bucks, 15 bucks, 50 bucks, 500 or 5,000 or more, the whole invoicing, the whole accounting charge, the whole process is the same cost. It's just a piece of paper, but it has to go through the system, it has to be accounted for, right? So you need to price things appropriately. You need to have let's say like a terms and conditions. You need to have some rules, because if you learn to say no, you will actually be able to get more profitable jobs. People don't realize that having a conversation with Mrs. Smith about 2 t-shirts is more time invested than talking to a small business person who needs 45, 50, 24 shirts, and that's a $500, $600 order. But you'll talk for 45 minutes with Mrs. Smith about something. Sorry, Mrs. Smith, if you're listening. And that'll be more painful and more costly, and you won't make money on that. And people think they make money because they get $50 in their jeans, but that's really not. If you add in all the time invested, the conversation alone was $45 of the $50, right? So it's a bad scenario. The last thing is, no offense to McDonald's, but my joke is always, I travel a lot. Why does the Big Mac taste equally bad in every part of the world that I go to? Sorry, no offense. Maybe it's great. I like it, actually. But why does it taste exactly the same everywhere? And whether it's in Paris, France, or whether it's any place in the United States, whether it's in Quebec in the French-speaking part of Canada, whether it's in Western Canada, whether it's in Mexico, whether it's anywhere in Asia, Russia, the thing tastes the same. But they have a system, a little system in place that whether the 15-year-old pimple-faced kid is making the thing or whether the 70-year-old retiree or anybody in between is making those fries and that hamburger, it's got to be made the same way from the same ingredients, the same process with the same fryer everywhere in the world, and that's why it tastes the same. And your business has to have that. Even though it's on a small scale, you have to have some policies and procedures. And when people buy equipment from us and they buy software, we connect them with a company, Commercio, that does exactly that for them to give them the tools to get off the ground. Those are the 5 things.
Where should people start first, would you say?
First of all, make a tiny business plan. Just something so you have a guideline, a goal, something set out so you have a direction to go to. And we can help out with that. We have a pretty good business plan we can email you with. And when you do that, you actually have a vision and you actually see where you want to go rather than being everything to everybody and being good at nothing. Focus on 1 or 2 things, whether it's schools or services for kids like karate and gymnastic and soccer and all that, or to businesses or for fundraising or for whatever. But pick a focus and become really good at 1 or 2 things and learn to say no to being everything for everybody because it's not going to make you money.
All right. Well, since you have seen many businesses fail over the years, what are the top factors to avoid?
Number 1 is the biggest mistake people make in the rag trade is that they are giving credit terms out to customers, and the business is in no shape to do that. So they need to immediately get on a system to collect a deposit and to make sure that they get paid when the goods go out on a credit card or whatever, even if they got to pay higher percent. But I remember being in Costco, and Costco even offers a service for a small business. Or when you join in here, when we first started the business years ago, we joined the Chamber of Commerce, which took us from 3% down to like 1% or less or something like that to take credit cards. And it gave us, let's say Visa right away. So we always were able to take Visa, MasterCard. And it's very important that they get paid because if you do it right, then when you get a deposit, it'll fund and give you the cash flow to buy all the things you need to get the order done. And when you get the balance before you release it, that's all your profit. That's the trick, because there's enough margin in the business to do that. So if people can start on the right foot and not do everything for a friend and collect that right away and make sure they have an easy way for the customer to pay, I think that's the number 1 thing they can do for their business, cash flow. But you know what? We have the other interview. We'll go in more detail on that. Fair enough?
Perfect.
Great. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Rob.
Have a good day.
Talk to you soon.